The fiscal year 2024 revenue and per school payouts have been released. And let's just say the Big Ten is starting to lap the SEC in an incredibly bad way for the SEC. Steve Berkowitz at USA Today reports that the Big Ten Conference had spent had received just over $928 million in total revenue in 2024. That is $88 million more than the SEC generated in revenue for fiscal year 2024. Yes, that's right. $88 million more. It gets worse. Okay, because this isn't done. The number that was distributed to the schools is even more significant when you look at it that way. The Big Ten was able to get $63 million to its 12 long-standing schools, which are the original 10 plus Penn State and Nebraska. And then they gave $61.5 million to Maryland and Rutgers. The SEC gave $52.5 million to its 14 long-standing schools, and only $27.5 million to Texas and Oklahoma each, which included $15 million refundable application fees plus a $12.5 million transition payment that was funded by ESPN. That number is going to go up. But the point of the matter is, with numbers even skewed towards the long-standing schools in the SEC this year, because of the money that was withheld from Texas and Oklahoma, they still had $10 million less than Maryland and Rutgers had distributed to them. And this is the first year of the contracts, and fiscal year 2024 wasn't the entire TV contracts. This gap is only going to increase in the future, guys. The SEC's in real trouble. The SEC's in real trouble. In the age of NIL, funding is all in a pot. Now, again, people are mistaking this all the time. There's never going to be a limit on NIL. I don't care what this House settlement says. There's never going to be a salary cap. There's never going to be a limit, because there's a difference between NIL and schools paying players, okay? NIL is players profiting off their name, image, and likeness. A booster can use endorsements as a pretext to just give players money, which is an effective way to buy them to go to school at the university. There is no way you can regulate that whatsoever in Washington. There is nothing that can be done. It's an antitrust violation if you try to step on it at all. That's not going to change. However, with that technicality protecting unlimited NIL, the effectiveness is different from the technicality, because effectively all the money is in the same pot. Because when a school generates more money for itself directly, they have more money to spend on certain things that the school needs, at which point they don't have to solicit as much money from their boosters. Because they don't have to solicit as much money from their boosters, those boosters can then go and generate endorsement deals for more recruits and help them buy talent. That is how this is working out, guys. And taking that into account, the Big Ten, in just the first year of this contract, the first half year of this contract, by the way, is already bringing in $10 million more per school, generally speaking, than the SEC is. That's going to go up to $20 million, by the way, very soon. That's going to go up to $20 million, okay? Which is an entire NIL budget, all right? So, the Big Ten is, if you look at what the schools are spending, we heard about the Texas 35 to 40 million, but in general, an NIL budget, let's say, is $20 million. Every Big Ten school is about to get an entire NIL budget more than Tennessee. And the revenue gap already is a huge deal. So I'm going to put the poll question up. First, how big of a deal is it for Tennessee that in-state five-star quarterback Jared Curtis committed to Georgia? 72% say no big deal. Vols have Faison Brandon. 28% say huge embarrassment. I'm going to close that out now. Next poll question. We're going to put this up now, which is the SEC in trouble with the Big Ten's $88 million revenue advantage? Or is the SEC in trouble given the Big Ten's $88 million revenue advantage, and bigger TV deal. The poll question will say the answers will be yes, Greg Sankey is the worst, or no, SEC will always be number one. You can put your homerism in there, but I'm going to tell you, if you say no, SEC will always be number one, I'm just going to tell you straight up front, you are wrong. Greg Sankey, I'm not saying he's the worst. I went for hyperbole there. I think he is, though. He's been a bad commissioner for the SEC. He got all this credit for getting an entire season to be played out during COVID, which he deserves credit on that during 2020. And he stood firm and did what was right. And he was very careful in how he carried that out. But outside of that, he has made misstep after misstep. Before the COVID thing happened is when the SEC inked this deal with ESPN. Now let's remember, the SEC deal with ESPN began in 2024. Greg Sankey signed that deal with them in 2019 out of an emotional move because they were upset that they were getting fleeced by CBS. Why would you sign a deal so far out? That made no sense on its own. The Big Ten added USC and UCLA, and they signed their deal 2 years out. The SEC signed theirs 5 years out. They signed theirs 5 years. Here's how this all worked out. The SEC was upset that CBS wouldn't renegotiate. So the SEC decided to stick it to CBS, to go ahead and give them the middle finger and negotiate a deal with ESPN. To their detriment, they negotiated it 5 years out. It was a 10-year, $300 million deal. I'm sorry, it's 10-year, $3 billion deal, $300 million per year. They negotiated that in 2019 to go into effect in 2024. To negotiate a 10-year deal 5 years out already makes no sense, and it was an emotional move to stick it to CBS and humiliate CBS to their own detriment. 2 years later, the news breaks that they are adding Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. So now they've got to split this TV revenue 16 ways instead of 14 ways, which is another problem. And they couldn't renegotiate with ESPN because they were locked in. A year later, the Big Ten adds USC, UCLA, and inks $1 billion deal per year across 3 networks, NBC and CBS and Fox, to expire in 7 years. Those contracts go into play at the same time in 2024. And now the Big Ten is 6 years away from being able to renegotiate and get a bigger contract, when then the SEC will be stuck in this bad contract for 3 more years after that, when they were bringing in 30% of the TV revenue that the Big Ten is bringing in. These gaps are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is a huge problem. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better. The gaps between the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get bigger over the next few years because of the TV contracts. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
That was Bank on it. The poll question: is the SEC in trouble given the Big Ten's $88 million revenue advantage and bigger TV deal? 59% of you say yes, Greg Sankey is the worst. 41% say no, the SEC will always be number one. Guys, the SEC won't always be number one, and it is. Greg Sankey is the worst. This was a horribly negotiated TV deal. It is a big, big problem. I'm sorry. There's just no way around it, okay? What has happened here is huge. Greg Sankey dropped the ball. You don't negotiate a TV deal 5 years out for 10 years in college football with the ever-changing landscape. I mean, guys, if you think about this for a minute, when Greg Sankey negotiated that deal in 2019, the SEC wasn't even 5 years removed from the SEC network launching. That's how big of a transition happens in this sport on a regular basis. It just made no sense. The Big Ten wasn't even 5 years removed from Maryland and Rutgers joining. Okay? Conference realignment happens all the time. And so for you to jump and reach out and negotiate a 10-year deal with another network, 5 years to take effect in 5 years, that's just ridiculous. You've locked yourself in now for 15 years, if you think about it. He locked the SEC in on a limited amount of revenue for 15 years after he made that deal in 2019, because he made the deal in 2019 to go into effect in 2024 and to last for 10 years, meaning he wouldn't be able to renegotiate another deal for 15 years, 2034, and he made this deal in 2019. There is no excuse for that. That was such a dumb move. The Big Ten, meanwhile, does a 7-year deal 2 years out. They locked themselves in for 9 years. The SEC locked itself in for 15 years, and the Big Ten got a way better deal. And even by adding Oregon and Washington wanted to be added at a discount. And at that discount, guys, I'm going to tell you, in about 2 years, Oregon and Washington, even at the discounted money they're bringing in, will be bringing in more money than the SEC schools. That's how big of a gap this deal is. It was a huge, critical, crucial mistake. And this $88 million gap is only going to grow. There's no way around it. The Big Ten and the SEC is screwed. The SEC is screwed, and their only real hope is for there to be a super conference soon and the conferences to not exist. And I'm going to talk a little bit later. I think there's going to be a moment where it might be time for some SEC schools to look on leaving the SEC and see if they can get into the Big Ten. They won't be able to do it now. Wait till the TV contract expires in 7 years. That would be the best time to do it. But truth be told, the SEC, look, I'm sorry. I know it's crazy. They're screwed. They're in big trouble. The last 2 national champions have been Big Ten teams. That number is going to continue in the future, even if the SEC wins it this year, maybe even next year. I think over the next 7 years, I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a gap grow where the Big Ten wins more titles than the SEC because Greg Sankey dropped the ball on contract negotiations in a big, big, big way.